Good day. Welcome to News Now on TV360. I am Thelma Okoro. Nigeria's inflation rate continued its steady fall, coming down to 16.25% for the month of May. This represents the fourth straight month the rate has fallen. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics released today shows the current rate is 0.99 percentage points lower than the rate recorded in April this year. Nigeria is currently in recession, though government has repeatedly assured the economy will come out of recession in 2017. This year's budget signed earlier this week is expected to pave way for economic growth. Mixed reactions continue to trail the acquittal of Senate President Bukola Saraki. The Code of Conduct Tribunal says Saraki has no corruption case to answer, dismissing the false asset declaration charges against him. Reacting to that ruling, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project (SERAP) says it wants the United Nations to be involved in Nigeria's anti-corruption war. SERAP condemned the decision, saying a UN-backed commission will help to improve Nigeria's criminal justice system. Now let's take a listen to how the lawyers involved in this case reacted to the verdict.
The concentration of power in the federal government is so high that the states and local governments have virtually become paralyzed. These are critical issues demanding that all arms of government be united in solving them. So if you have a situation where the National Assembly is distracted, the Senate President is facing charges, the Deputy Senate President is facing charges, the clerk, happily that matter went off, and then you now have the Senate President who has to spend all his time preparing to fight for his own freedom. I do not think that a government like that can get the very best, and that is why we are glad that whatever it was that compelled this trial in the first place, we are happy that eventually the law was allowed to take its course and that the facts spoke for themselves.
We have already started making arrangements for the ruling, so once we get the ruling, well, it's not a judgment, it's a ruling. But if you like, you call it judgment, maybe because it has gone in depth and all that. So you can call it judgment, but it's a ruling. And we have already started making arrangements to get a copy of the ruling. As soon as it's out, then we'll study it and then.
Another group reacting to Saraki's acquittal is an anti-corruption group here in Nigeria. The Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education described the verdict of the CCT as rigged. It's also calling on the immediate resignation of Abubakar Malami, who is the Attorney General of the Federation, for that verdict. The ruling APC also wasn't spared in the scathing words of this group. In the group's words, it said, quote, "It is abundantly clear that the anti-corruption crusade has been mortgaged by the band of thieving elites bent on cornering the resources of the nation. The All Progressives Congress neither has the strategy nor the commitment to deal with corruption. In fact, the party has become so accommodated to corruption that it is no longer different from the PDP, which was replaced in 2015. End of quote. A federal high court in Abuja has granted a request of the federal government to shield witnesses in the trial of Sambo Dasuki, the former national security advisor of the country. The government is prosecuting Dasuki for possession of firearms and money laundering. Justice Ahmed Mohammed in his ruling says the witnesses will, however, not be shielded to the lawyers in the case and the defendant. He admitted the offense which Dasuki is being prosecuted for required protection of witnesses according to the law. More on our top stories. Acting President Osinbajo has met with leaders of Nigeria's southeast region at the presidential villa in Abuja. The meeting comes a day after Osinbajo also met with northern leaders. Both meetings were organized on the backdrop of an ultimatum issued to Igbos living in the northern part of the country by a northern youth group. At the meeting, the acting president reiterated his stance that the government will not tolerate any attempts to divide the nation. Lai Mohammed, who is the Minister of Information and Culture, has also assured Igbos residing in the northern part of the country that their safety is guaranteed. Mohammed said security operatives were prepared to deal decisively with any group of people whose conduct will create instability in the country. He further reiterated that Nigeria remains safe for every citizen and everyone is free to live in any part of the country. The Nigerian army says its troops are not guilty of extrajudicial killing of members of the indigenous people of Biafra and Boko Haram insurgents group. Amnesty International had accused the army of human rights abuses as well as excessive use of force and extrajudicial killing of terrorists in the northeast part and members of IPOB in the southeastern part of the country. But now the army says those accusations are false. At least 60,000 candidates will have to rewrite their JAMB examinations. The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board JAMB says the students were innocent of malpractice, but are among those affected by centers blacklisted for exam misconduct. The rescheduled exams will hold on July 1st, 2017. At a meeting with chief external examiners and stakeholders of on the conduct of the exams in Abuja, JAMB announced it had already blacklisted 48 computer-based test centers over their alleged involvement in extortion and organized examination malpractices.
The suspension of 24 CBT centers for 1 year. That means that the centers will not participate in 2018. And the delisting of 48 centers from participating henceforth from the examination of JAMB for serious technical deficiencies, extortion, organized examination malpractice, and other damaging infractions. The cancellation of results of 57,647 candidates in centers induced malpractice. And this 57,646 it does not mean that they committed examination malpractice, and it does not mean they did not, but they were not caught.
5 men have been arraigned for importing the 661 pump-action rifles impounded in Lagos port earlier this year. The accused were arraigned before Justice Ayokunle Faji of the Federal High Court in Lagos. Their case has now been adjourned till September 12, 2017. The Nigerian army says its troops have carried out clearance operation at the Rijani Forest in Kaduna State. A statement by Director Army Public Relations Officer Brigadier General Sani Usman said the clearance was carried out following disturbing resurgence of criminal activities along the Kaduna-Abuja road. The raid took place on Wednesday, 14 June. During the clearance, troops arrested a suspected notorious gang leader identified as Sani Ibrahim, who has been declared wanted by security agencies in Kaduna State. Kemi Adeosun, Minister of Finance, says the federal government will recruit 7,500 graduates as community tax officers to raise tax awareness among the citizens. Adeosun says the recruits would be expected to go to schools, churches, mosques, markets, and other social places to educate people on the tax system and let them know their obligations. She said through this initiative, the government expects to increase the number of taxpayers by 35% from 14 million to about 17 million in 2 years. The appeal court overturned the judgment of the Code of Conduct Tribunal convicting Gadsde Orubebe, who is the former Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, for false declaration of assets. The government filed a 1-count charge of the crime against him last year. The court held it was clear that Orubebe sold the property when he was charged, but he even sold the title deeds before his name could be put on them.
Corruption not in my country.
Hello, Alhaji. Right now I'm in Abuja. No. Hello? Adamu. Right now, I'm in Kano. Yes. When I get back, I will just call you. Look, what is wrong with you? I'm talking on the phone and you are gesticulating and doing. What's wrong with you?
Daddy, where exactly are we as we speak?
Are you alright? This is Lagos.
Well, you just lied to someone that we're in Abuja.
Keep quiet there. Who told you you can tell an elderly person is lying?
Daddy, you just lied. And by lying, you're raising corrupt children for the future of Nigeria. That is corruption, not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Welcome back now to business stories. The Nigerian naira could strengthen against the dollar in the coming days as more offshore investors buy up local stocks. Traders say reemergence of offshore interest in the stock market has boosted dollar inflows to the economy, leading to a gradual exchange rate convergence. The local currency was quoted at 365 to the dollar on the black market on Thursday against 368 per dollar recorded last week. It's still trading at around 305 to the dollar on the official interbank window. The Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative (NATI) says it has no evidence to show that the NNPC remitted the $15.8 billion it received from the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Company to the Federation account. NATI alleges that NNPC failed to remit the proceeds to either the federal account or the federal government. Oil prices dropped to 6-week lows on Thursday under pressure from high global inventories and doubts about OPEC's ability to implement agreed production cuts. Brent crude oil fell by 30 cents to $46.70 per barrel, while US crude was down 25 cents at $44.48 per barrel. Both crude benchmarks have lost all the gains made at the end of last year after OPEC and other big producers agreed to cut output to prop up prices. At least 31 people were killed when Islamist militants launched an attack on a busy hotel and restaurant in the Somali capital of Mogadishu. Another 27 civilians were taken to hospitals with various serious injuries. Security forces took back the control of the restaurant at midnight after gunmen held hostages inside for several hours. 5 of the gunmen were eventually killed. It's believed they were members of Al-Shabaab. President Donald Trump is being investigated by Special Counsel Robert Mueller for possible obstruction of justice. U.S. media reports that the senior intelligence officials will be interviewed on whether Trump tried to end an inquiry into his sacked National Security Advisor and the firing of FBI Chief James Comey. Trump tweeted that the move was the latest action in a phony story. Moving on to sports stories now, the Nigerian Football Federation has commenced plans to set up a scouting unit for the country's national team. The decision was part of recommendations reached after a meeting with Sports Minister Solomon Dalong earlier this month. The meeting was convened after the Eagles' shock 2-0 defeat to South Africa in its opening Nations Cup qualifier. World heavyweight boxing champion Anthony Joshua is set to visit Nigeria this August. A statement from Pew Aston Global says Joshua's visit to Nigeria is part of his attempt to give back to society. He's also likely to meet acting President Yemi Osinbajo and some state governors during his visit to Nigeria. Joshua would also attend a charity boxing match organized in Lagos and later in Abuja. Floyd Mayweather will fight UFC lightweight champion Conor McGregor in a much-discussed boxing match on August 26 in Las Vegas. It is a stunning development given that Mayweather, who is unbeaten, retired after compiling a 49-0 pro record from 1996 through till 2015. But with a fight which could pay each man in excess of $100 million, he had to reconsider his decision to retire from the game. Well, that's all we have on news now. Thanks for watching. I am Thelma Okuru.